Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. Chad Himes here and Bob Stewart over there. Bob, how are you today?
Hey, Chad. Good to see you, man.
And you, Bob. I'm looking forward to catching up and hearing some great things from you. But this is not the episode for it because we have company on this episode that we're going to want to bring along.
I think that when you say that, the crowd does a little clap. If there's a crowd, I don't know if there's a crowd, but if people listen to this podcast, which I think they do, they're clapping that we brought somebody besides just you and me, I think.
So, Bob, I just want to jump right into it because this is a guy that, forget it. You know, I'm not going to give you his bio, but this is a guy we're going to have some interesting conversation. I think, folks, we're going to be all over the map on this one. So be ready for that as we get into it. And I would like to introduce to the Win, Make, Give podcast, Jeremy Straub. Jeremy, welcome to the podcast.
Chad, Bob, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Jeremy, I don't read bios, as I just said. So introduce yourself to our audience because many of them out there might be like, who is this guy? Tell them what you want to tell them about yourself.
Sure. Entrepreneur. My large company I run is a company called Coastal Wealth. We have 400 financial advisors throughout the Southeast of the United States, manage about 15 billion in assets and have a couple 100,000 clients. But then I'm also involved in a couple other industries and a couple other businesses that we could talk about as we progress in this conversation.
Excellent. And we will definitely probably jump into some of that financial advice information, which you're willing to just share with us as we just finished the Wealth Series 2.0 on the Win, Make, Give podcast, Bob. So what do you want to say about that all wrapping up?
Well, Jeremy, let me ask you a question. I think as a young kid growing up, the idea of a wealth advisor was something that rich people had. I'm assuming you don't just work with rich people. I don't even know what that would be. I don't know how much, net worth I need to have to be considered a rich person. But talk to me just a little bit, in general about wealth advising and what you guys do and the types of clients that you work with. Just kind of maybe for somebody like me that grew up thinking wealth advisors were for rich people, maybe level set me on that.
Well, first, I thought you guys did a great job with the episodes, giving people context of how they should look at their entire financial situation. And so I got to listen to a couple of them. So I think you guys are providing some good education out there. Even if it's not your background, I think you did a good job pulling a lot of information and giving a good objective of that view of
Thank
it. In general, I think wealth planning is planning for the certainty of uncertainty. No matter what happens in your life, you got a smart place to go get money. And I don't think your economic situation, whether how wealthy or non-wealthy you might think you are, makes you in a place that you don't need a smart place to go get money when something happens. Whether that's you got to pay for a kid's college, whether that's you're paying for your retirement, whether that's, one of you gets sick and you all of a sudden have to pay medical bills that you didn't expect to pay or you're not working, you always need to be able to have a good solid plan to be able to tap into resources that you're not compounding some personal thing with a financial problem.
Jeremy, I'm assuming that you get people that come to you guys and they probably say things like, man, I've been thinking about doing this for a while. I probably should have done it sooner. Why do you, what are some of the reasons people don't start thinking about a plan for this sooner rather than later? Maybe I'm unique.
No, I think you're spot on, to be honest. I think a lot of people don't think they would qualify for working with a financial advisor or don't think they have the need for it. And the truth of the matter is, if you have an income and and you could save even a couple $100 a month, it's time to start thinking about your future. Or if you have a lot of debt and you're figuring out a way to plan your debt. Now, it might not be working with, you might not be working with one type of advisor. You might be working with a different type of advisor. The industry is relatively fragmented to make sure that no matter where you are in your financial life, there's someone there to be able to help you. The idea is to have a guide, right? I think all the information's out there. You can Google information, you can listen to podcasts like yourself and be able to gather information. It's how do you take all that information and say, how does it apply to me? And so the idea of having a financial professional is to be able to say, okay, all that information out there that we can go find everywhere, how do I sift through that? And then tell me the pros and cons of each option and let me choose which path I should go. How should I be paying down debt first or should I be saving? Should I be putting all my money in retirement dollars or should I be putting my money into individual securities? People tell me about real estate. Should I be investing in real estate or should I be investing in stocks? Everybody has these questions as they're starting to progress down their financial life. And the idea of having somebody to be able to talk through that has been trained in that area and work with a number of other people will help give you peace of mind and direction so you can make some good decisions.
Okay, so Jeremy, before we started and I hit record, Bob, we're waiting on Bob to get here. Jeremy,
anyways,
we were chit chatting a little bit, and you're talking about where to put my money. You're talking about stuff like that, and again, we cover a lot of that in the Wealth Series 2.0. Folks, scroll back just a few episodes, and you can always visit winmakegive.com/wealth to be able to get the access right to those and the workbooks. There's a concept I want to ask you about for a place to put my money that Bob and I have talked about in the past, and I am completely clueless. And Bob seems to have some understanding, and it's not crypto, it's NFTs. So you spent a decent amount of money, I'm not going to mention how much, on an NFT of a Bored Ape.
Oh, you're the Bored Ape Yacht Club?
Yeah.
You got to explain, first of all, to our audience who has no clue what I just said, and then you got to explain to me why.
Well, listen, this has nothing to do with financial advice.
This is our first detour down the side road.
Yeah, this is a personal thing that was fun to me, and I think during COVID and while we were sitting at home, it ended up being a fun place to be able to, for the lack of a better word, gamble. With it.
Yeah.
I would not recommend using it as part of your financial plan or anything associated with that. I think.
So what is an NFT?
An NFT is a non-fungible, what's the NFT is non-fungible token. So I'll give you an example. I stopped looking. So I just recently got over stage 4 throat cancer. I had it about 8 months ago, and I was deep into starting to trade NFTs back then for fun. And then, kind of got a reset as I went through that. So I have not played in the space for about 8 months. Why did I do it though? You get benefits from certain types of NFTs that you own. They used to call it utilities. Now they're calling it just benefits or, perks that you get from owning an NFT. And the Bored Ape Yacht Club was a community where you can be able to have people that are deep in the space. They got deep into the crypto and NFT space early. And so if you wanted people that really knew the space well and you wanted access to those people, you had to buy into certain NFTs to be able to get access to that. So that was on conference calls, that was in different events that you were going to, and that allowed you to start learning about the space. So as we had people just bring it up, it was such a buzzword like 2 years ago that I was sitting there going, you know what? People keep bringing this up. It's not something we sell or we even recommend at all. But for my own personal fun and enjoyment, I started trading it and having fun with it. And the Bored Ape was one that we spent a decent amount. Luckily, I made some money in crypto, so it wasn't, straight cash. But it was one of those ones where in an NFT, for example, the Bored Ape, you actually own the right to be able to use that picture. So the thought was we would use that as kind of our animated mascot for the company. And it would be a way to be able to get people that are really like the NFT crypto side, but never really looked in the traditional side of finance, that would give them a sense that we have a pulse on what they're interested in and allow them to go, hey, maybe this isn't some stodgy financial company. I might be interested in talking to these guys. That was
a social signal in some way that people like, because the people in the know on that stuff who probably much like you, like a lot of them are dabbling in it, but they've got real assets and wealth. Not that crypto's not real. We could probably go back and forth on that, but they've got the more traditional assets and wealth that need to be managed. So it's like it could have been a social signal in some way that you guys would use to like you said, let them know you're not the stodgy old institution.
There was two parts, right? So the younger generation that we want to bring in as financial advisors, we didn't want to seem like an old stodgy, financial bank or institution. And then the second part was new investors. I saw a lot of young people investing in crypto and NFT as their first entry point into actually financial assets. And they learned good basic strategies, dollar cost averaging, being able to have a diversified portfolio, even if it was just crypto or NFTs. Right. They started understanding to buy low, sell high, if they're going to do it, or buy and hold, like starting to understand that you can't panic when there's certain things that are happening. So I think they learned traditional values of investing from it. But in my mind, NFTs and cryptos, is not a place that you could have I would even say 5% or 3%, 2% of your assets, right? And there were a lot of younger people that were going heavy in that space. So it's like, how do we start to attract them to understand that there are safer spots that they can invest? And so it was the idea of just being relevant in the space.
Okay.
as you're saying that, it's making me go to my Robinhood to see what percentage of my Robinhood is in cryptos. Well, it's close to your suggested low side range. Good.
That's good to hear, Bob. All right, Jeremy, first of all, I don't know if congratulations is the right word, but congratulations on fighting and beating from what we were talking about throat cancer you mentioned. I know by the time this airs, you'll have gone to that follow-up visit that we were talking about that you're really looking forward to, where the doctor says, okay, you're winning this fight. We'll all be sending good thoughts to you as you have that. Um, let's jump into a lot of other things here, though. You've been in more than one industry. So you said, you've got your financial planning, you've got this large company there, yet you've dabbled in other industries. What is it, just for fun? Is it just because, or is it you're saying, hey, these all industries all have opportunities and I want to be involved in them? Why would our audience who are entrepreneurs be thinking about dabbling in multiple different industries?
So there's a couple of reasons, right? So I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My father started out selling cars, got my mom pregnant as a 20-year-old and had to go figure out how to start making money, dropped out of college into that, ended up owning a couple car dealerships. Long story short, all he did was invest in the car dealerships because he knew he can get a high return from his investment he was putting in the dealerships. But when 2008 happened, it completely changed his business model, and the businesses in the car dealerships didn't work out. And he never diversified where he was getting income from, never diversified his assets. And I promised myself that even if I do have a thriving business, which we have a successful business, that I would not put myself in a situation if that business started to slow down or not do well, that would affect my entire financial situation. So I kind of thought in my head I would always own these portfolio companies. And then I just started to pick industries that were either offshoots from my existing business or ones that I enjoyed. And I always joke, I think guys like cars and bars, right? So one of the first things I invested in was bars and restaurants. And so, I got a buddy and him and I started a restaurant in Philadelphia, and then we moved it to two. Then I started a tequila bar down here in Fort Lauderdale. Got into some other types of businesses. That business, oddly enough, has been done really well for me. I know a lot of people don't have success in that. I think I got lucky by having really good operators to work with and knowing where my weaknesses was not in actually running the day-to-day, but understanding how to run successful businesses I could do. And so I was smart to be able to partner with the right people to be able to help me get these businesses to be successful.
It's funny you say that because I'm looking at your guys, mycoastalwealth.com, and I'm looking at your management team, and you've clearly in this business gone out and found some people to partner with, like a Harris or a Luis or some of these folks, right? That are literally the title is partner on here. Like, how have you traditionally thought? And maybe you could use the example of your first friend in the restaurant, or maybe that's different from subsequently how you would think about it. But how have you thought about who that partner's going to be?
So I've had some bad partnerships too, right? So you kind of learn by skinning your knees, like anything else. One person, one of my good friends, I'm in YPO, which has been a great way for me to be able to get good advice for those that have decent sized businesses, the Young Presidents Organization. And somebody said to me in that group, they said, you can never have a good deal with a bad partner. And so no matter how good deals look, if the partner isn't good, it doesn't work. So the first thing I'm looking at is ethically, what's his reputation, do background checks on the partner. I'm actually talking to people that have done business and deals with them. I'm going to spend a lot of time up front if I didn't know that person to really ensure that he's had a good or she's had a good, clean track record. And the second thing I'm doing is I'm just making sure I enjoy working with them. You guys hear people say they have a no asshole policy. It's the same deal with partners, right? I don't want somebody that's a jerk to work with. And so I'm really careful to make sure that I want to have a beer with that person. Maybe not a beer anymore now that I'm getting through the cancer, but I used to want to be able to make sure I could have a tequila or a beer with them and enjoy my time with them. That was a big piece of me wanting to be able to work with them because we would hit issues and I wanted to be able to be able to talk through it. And then the last part is I have an operating system that I run most of my businesses on. It's a structure and a process that I like to use no matter what industry or what business it is. And so as I lay out that process, I say, is this something you're comfortable running with? And so I've taken a lot of pieces out of EOS, which you might know from the book Traction, the entrepreneurial operating system. I've taken a lot of pieces out of that and then added my own spin and twist on stuff to feel like I have a really relatively good process that I feel comfortable with in running and managing a business. And then I make sure they can run that system for me and they're okay with it.
Like, I don't know how deep, like, my natural follow-up question is, tell me a little bit about your EOS. And like, are there some things that you'd be willing to share that are just maybe like conceptually sound business fundamentals with
So
the audience?
I'll give you an example. So one of the things we do is we do 90-day sprints, right? And the idea of 90-day sprints is you don't do annual goals, you do 90-day goals. And the way that I'm setting up the comp for most of the people that work for me is a salary and bonus. And the bonus is tied to us hitting 90-day goals. It's your business, your department hitting its 90-day goal. And then it's you having, go back to the EOS stuff, your rocks, your certain projects that you're working on for those 90 days that's going to pay your bonus on it. And so then I'm unbelievably religious in planning out those 90 days. And then at the end of those 90 days, completely reviewing what you did, how you did versus your rocks, what part of that you'll get your bonus, and then planning on your next 90 days. So it's always an offsite every 90 days to do that 90-day business plan on whatever business it is, whatever company it is, or if you're down to the department levels, and it trickles down to all the different levels. So the 90-day sprint has been a big way for us to be able to run the business.
I mean, like a lot of these businesses, like if you did it even, biannually or something, like you realize like, oh my God, we're off track. We were off track 6 months ago, right? Like 90 days doesn't allow you to get too far off track.
Dude, you get the same emotional deal like that you would have during the year. In the first 30 days, everybody's planning and not really working. Then they're like, oh my gosh, I only have 60 days left. They start working really hard at that 30, 60 day mark. And then it's like 10, 15 days to hit the bonus and hit their goals. And then everybody's going crazy at the end. I had that same thing that would happen over 12 months. And I'm sitting here going, I can't wait 12 months. How can I narrow it down? And how I used to run my personal life was in these 90-day sprints. And then finally I was like, well, we should run the business that way. And now we ended up starting to run the business that way.
Okay. So it's the 12-week year concept for people who have read that. Talk to me though. You just threw that out there and it caught my attention. You ran your life with this 90-day sprint concept. Talk about how this applied outside of work so our audience can say, hey, I can implement that in my life as well.
So one of the things I do each year is I do a values assessment and say, okay, what are my values? And I don't mean valuables like principles like honesty or, integrity. I'm talking like what's valuable for me to go spend my time. Is it family? Is it health? I like doing adventurous stuff, right? So if I'm not snowboarding, spear fishing, doing stuff like that every week or month, I start to feel stress, right? So like, what are these places I want to spend my time? Every year I do that values exercise that, okay, these are the big buckets where it's really important for me to have a productive week is spending the time there. So then what I do is I go, okay, that's where I want to spend the time. What are my goals for the next 90 days to do that? And then so I break my 90-day goals personally down to my values. So for example, if family is one of my values, then I'm going to say in the next 90 days, how do I get in a really quality time with my kids? And I start planning on, because I don't believe in a balanced day, even a balanced week. I believe in a balanced month. And so in that month, where am I going to get these buckets of time to spend quality time with my kids? So then it's like, all right, I'm going to plan a weekend away here. This is going to be my date night with my daughter. And I'm already planning it out for the next 90 days to be able to hit my goals. And I do that with health. I do it with adventure. I do it with wisdom and me trying to learn and trying to grow as an individual.
How do you help employees succeed with the 90 days? I mean, you talk about where's your accountability to them in there? Where's the cracking the whip, the patting on the back? How do you help an employee so you don't just say, hey, I'll see you in 90 days. Hopefully you hit it, yet you help them get where they're going?
It's you would see probably most businesses, right? So they'll present their rocks and their 90-day plan at the beginning. We do it in a group. So whatever the company is, they come and present the 90-day plan to each of their peers in a group setting. Then we kind of approve it. At that point, if I disagree with a couple of them, I'll have one off with them. Then during the next 3 months, depending on the leader, it's either a one-on-one weekly, and it's a 30-minute or 45-minute, which is basically like, what do you need my help with to be able to hit those rocks and hit your 90-day plan? And it's accountability you would normally get from a one-on-one. Or what I found is for the bigger leaders that don't need weekly accountability, I do a once a month 3-hour strategy session. And that's where we dig real deep into the 90-day plans. What I found is my department heads or my business leaders don't need weekly accountability from me. What they need is my strategic mind to work with them. And they need me not to rush a conversation. So they call me at night at 6:00 and I'm talking to them for like 20 minutes. I can't get this deep conversation with them to work through an issue why they're not having the 90-day plan. So I need these 3-hour meetings once a month to really spend time to dive deep to make sure they can be able to hit their goals. And then at the end of the 90 days, they got to present one-on-one to say, here's what I did, here's what I hit, here's what my bonus should be. And I say yes or no, you get it. And then we move on to our group meeting after that.
I mean, this is a very similar philosophy to how Ben operates in our organization, Chad, right? Because the reality is, Jeremy, like probably all your employees have a million things they could be doing on any given day. But you got to make sure you call them the big rocks, right? We call them our top 3 priorities, but we got to make sure that like, that top priority gets done. And we don't just fill our days with busy work, right? Because otherwise then we're not moving the business along, which is obviously you guys realize and is why you're doing these 9-day sprints and you're focusing on the big rocks. And if we can get those moved, it sounds like you tie pay to that as well. Did I hear that properly? Like people are being bonused and their pay is being impacted by their ability to move these big rocks?
100%. We don't have annual bonuses. It's 90-day bonuses. And that was a big transition I made about 2 years ago that really made a difference in getting people to buy into running 90-day sprints. Before it was just, like a way we kind of ran the business, but people really didn't buy into it. As soon as their pocketbook was based on it, it completely changed the engagement.
Is that so? Is there some kind of a general formula? Like, is it tied to the profit of the business? Or are there some times when maybe it's not tied to that, it's tied to some objective they have?
I'll give you an example on the big business, right? So my Coastal Wealth, the one you were looking at the website, right? It's 50-50. 50% is tied to that department or that company hitting its goal, whatever the goal is for the 90 days. And they're actually metric based, right? So it's not like fuzzy or anything like that. It's like, if you hit this number or whatever percentage of number, you get this bonus, right? Then the other 50% of that bonus is tied to their rocks or their 5, goals or 3 goals they have for that quarter. That is 90 days. And that's something we agreed on ahead of time. And the hardest part I found in doing this is making sure it's measurable and not fuzzy or soft, or I call squishy. Because a lot of times they'll lay a goal and it'll be like, I want to build a process for this. Well, like at the end of 90 days, how do I tell you if you actually built the process or not? Right? I had to really start to tie it to a tangible piece for me to be able to say you hit it or not. Because if it was a discussion, I always gave them the money. I felt bad, right? I'm not going to sit there and go like argue that like I disagree how you view this. I don't want to do that. I don't pay you. So I had to get really tight during the goal setting process to make sure it's measurable.
And that was probably that wasn't like one day you didn't have that type process and the next day you did. I assume there was a little bit of an arc in there of refining that and dialing it into really measurable types of achievements.
It probably took about 1.5 years or 2 years to get it right. And even still, when we have new employees come in, they struggle with trying to set what their rocks are, or their priorities are for those 90 days. And they struggle with making it measurable. It's the hardest thing to be able to do.
Well, nobody wants to be held accountable to a goal that fails. So they want to have that flexibility. And you're right. The best thing to do is say, look, the goal's 10. And if you get 8, you get 80%. You didn't get all the way there. Let's just make it easy. That way there's no game and we don't have to say, and I don't have to feel bad and you don't have to feel bad. So Jeremy, I'm looking, you've won best place to work and all that. You guys have a lot of that stuff. Other than this 90-day concept or this 90-day sprint plan for your people, what are you doing to keep culture, to keep things up so that you're obviously winning this and your employees are saying working here is amazing? How do you create community? Give our entrepreneurs that are listening some tips they should take back to their business to build a better business through their people.
Yeah, I'll give a number of tangible things. So one is we have an unlimited PTO policy, right? We trust our employees implicitly. I think we do a really good job hiring the best and overpaying them a little bit, opposed to a marketplace, to make sure that I don't have to sit there and micromanage or hold people accountable. So unlimited PTO, as long as you give it 2 weeks ahead of time and it's approved, you can take off when you want to. The second thing is we give people the option for 4-day work weeks. You have the choice if you want a 4-day work week or a 5-day work week. You work on with your leader, decide if you want the 4-day work week. The other thing that we've done is we really tried to create a virtual culture to be able to make it where even if you're working remotely, you feel connected. And so what we have is each department leader owns a month during the year, and it kind of rotates through where they'll have something. So we'll have I can't remember that. It's one of those video games that you play that a bunch of kids play all the time, like a military game. You guys,
like Call of Duty?
Yeah, like, not Call of Duty, not so violent. Like another one.
I was going to say kids. I played that last night, but anyway.
My tech department runs that. So they run like a monthly contest, and it's like a video game contest where everybody's on Zoom and they're playing video games against each other to be able to do it. Another one will be, like January, for example, we're doing through Strava a competition of who works out the most for January. And you have this healthy competition and banter between all the employees across the company on how they're doing. And they're tracking each other on Strava to do it. So each month we have a different theme that we're running. We have a month that we give back where everybody goes and does a beach cleanup. We have another one where we go to Feeding America, and we go into each of those places to volunteer. So those types of things, I'll give you an example. I interviewed 2 people this week for 2 roles we have in compliance and supervision. The reason they said they wanted to join us is because when they looked on social and on our websites, it was our engagement in the community that they saw us doing, and the fact that we cared about the employees in a sense of their well-being. And so I didn't think when we built the company that was going to be one of our value propositions, and that was going to be something that attracted talent. But what I'm finding in the marketplace, and we just thought it was a good thing to do, right? And it was kind of fun, and how do we make it during COVID and keep people connected? What I'm finding is that people, they're looking for a company that matches their values, and they're looking for a company that they feel is like good people that want to give back. And so my conversations and interviews lately have been just around the values of how we live our values and what we do to be able to give back. And I'm having people open up about maybe it's a health issue they have, and why it was really important to see us do a walk and a company supported and how much we donated, because they believe that, for themselves personally, they know how much it's affected them from their health. And they want a company that actually cares about that and not just the profit. And so that's been a big piece of the culture that I did not expect, that really came out of COVID from us doing a lot of virtual stuff, but really just trying to give back to the community more than I think I put out there as part of our business.
Jeremy, I want to maybe kind of go back to the start of the conversation for a second here, and maybe this wraps us up. But I think coming out of the Wealth Series, right? So we've had tens of thousands of people listen to this Wealth Series. A lot of them will hear this interview, and they might be thinking like, I'm a financial planner, some wealth advising is something that I think I need now, right? The Wealth Series made me aware of what's going on. I know what my net worth is. I got some ideas of some things I want to invest in, and but I do, like, there's a lot of information out there, so I definitely like some help. Here's my question, and maybe this Chad knows. A lot of times I ask questions that are like relevant to something that happened in my life recently. I just recently watched the Bernie Madoff thing on Netflix, right? And he's obviously the most famous of this, but you got the Sam Bankman-Fried and the FTX stuff, right? And how does somebody find a wealth advisor that they can trust, that is, look, Madoff, he fooled everybody, right? Including the most savvy investors possible. So maybe we can never be 100% certain that we're doing them, but how do people find a level of trust? And what would you suggest how they vet a financial planner or a wealth advisor?
So a couple of things. In general, the regulatory industry and the financial industry is pretty good at sifting out and disclosing which advisors you could be working with or not. And I mean, so from emails being supervised to checking risk tolerance that you have versus the investments they make, there are so many different checks and balances in the financial world. If you're investing with a registered representative, any financial advisor, you're going to work with somebody that's going to be heavily, heavily scrutinized with it. So the likelihood of a Bernie Madoff is very, very low relative to them, opposed to a crypto. And you get all these crypto guys now, they want regulation because they're like, if we were regulated like the financial industry, Sam would have never happened, right? And so I think in general, the investors should feel relatively safe working with someone that's licensed, right? There is something on finra.org that you can do. It's called broker check. Broker check is you literally write in the person's name, and you could see if there's been any complaints, and you could see if there's been any fines they've had to pay or anything like that as a financial advisor. So no matter who you work with, before you work with them, you should do a broker check on anybody you work with. The other part is in general, you want to work with someone that does financial planning. You want to work the idea of the old school stockbroker or bond trader or insurance agent. It's not really there unless you're in the ultra high net worth where you want a specific person to run one little piece of your portfolio. In general, you have people that are holistic advisors looking at the entire situation. The certified financial planner, the CFP, is kind of like the big designation in the industry. It's like a CPA or a JD in the financial planning side. So if you could find somebody with a CFP, you can feel pretty confident that they've gone through the training to look at your entire financial life from an objective perspective, not just being push products. And then the last part I would say is, just take a look to see which companies that they're affiliated with and just ask them and make sure that is there any reason they would be paid to sell one product over another. In general, that's gone in the industry. That's been kind of washed away in the industry, but there are still some out there that don't have full licenses on that part. But I think you're pretty safe in general working with a registered representative. Somebody has their Series 7 or Series 6 because there is such good scrutiny from a compliance perspective. And if you really want to do the backgrounds, broker check on FINRA.org and looking for somebody with a CFP.
Love it. Love it.
Okay, so before we wrap this up, you and I talk about what you've got coming next. I don't care whether you repeat something that you said because it's that powerful, you wanted to say it again, or if there's something we didn't ask you that you want to talk about with our audience. Let me just give you the platform for the last minute. What is it that you want to send home with our audience to make sure they take away from this?
So I shared with before about, my run-in through cancer, right? And I really didn't appreciate how much and how intense that would be going through that whole treatment. One of the things that, I saw was like an Instagram post, but it kind of really resonated with me. And it said a happy person, has 1,000 things they want. A sick person only has one thing they want. And so what switched for me was this concept of the difference between an inconvenience and a problem. And there were lots of things in my life. I just went through a personal divorce. I went through a bad business divorce, all these things that I thought were really hard in life. And then you go through a big health scare like stage 4 cancer and you realize that was really my only problem I ever dealt with. And I had a really good life. Like my life is pretty awesome, to be honest. And I'm 45 and I thought I was really healthy. The part I would say, and it's hard even as I start to feel better and I get my energy back to keep that in mind when I'm just dealing with life. I catch myself going back to bad habits or things that are not completely in line with my values in a sense of where I want to spend my time, right? I'll go to a business dinner instead of going hanging out with my kids and helping them with the home. I would just have people really start to think about as you're dealing with whatever issue during the day, is this an inconvenience that it's not going to be that big of a deal in 6 months from now, or is it a real problem? And I think that was probably one of the biggest ahas in my life from what I went through.
I love that. What a great, great message to leave this at. Now, you're launching, maybe even have launched by the time this drops and airs, a new podcast of your own. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I have a podcast called Youpreneur with the letter U that I interview business owners very similar to what you guys are going through. It's something I really enjoy, just learning people's stories. But I'm excited about this new podcast I'm rolling out. My co-host is Dr. Jason Heller. He has 34 designations. He has 2 masters in financial planning. He has a doctorate in
I'm chuckling here for a second, Jeremy, because I'm on your website and I see him, and all of you guys have a couple designations, and that dude's list is like this big. Like
literally like 34, right? So him and I just launched a podcast. It's called Mindset Meets Money. And, it's pretty, you'll get a lot of people that'll tell you where exactly to invest or what to do. What we really jump into is why people don't create wealth because of the behaviors they do or don't do, and how money makes people think about things in ways that always aren't in line with actually increasing their wealth. And so it's short episodes, 15, 20 minutes, gives you a really just clean, easy advice that you can look at and being able to make better decisions with your money. It's called Mindset Meets Money. Check it out.
Perfect. We appreciate that. We appreciate you taking your time and sharing so much with our audience, especially fresh coming out of the Wealth series not too long ago. There's some great information right here to add on to that from another perspective, folks. A guy who's taking cancer and said, take that while still being able to succeed and move forward, folks. Just remember, what a great message Jeremy's leaving us with. Inconvenience or a problem. Right? Figure out which one it is because it'll make the difference in so much. Folks, we hope that you're following us in the Facebook group and keeping up with conversations after the fact. You can always join us there. That's Win, Make, Give on Facebook. You'll find us. And until our next episode, as always, do good.